Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. All right, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited to have as my guest today, Beck Thompson. Beck, welcome.
Thank you for having me to Guy.
Awesome. So despite her early life being dominated by childhood trauma and parental neglect, you will not hear Beck using the terms survivor or thriver. Trauma would not be the hero nor the legacy of her life. She's made it her mission to change the way her childhood trauma tainted her view of the world. Her approach to trauma recovery is determined and unabashedly honest, getting real with the girl within to repair and renew her sense of worth and value. Beck is the author of the memoir, Chasing Normal. And as a primary teacher, speaker, and presenter, she brings a unique perspective, inspiring others with her unwavering belief in change and the human capacity for healing. Welcome to the podcast. So before we get going here, share with the listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
So I'm from, I was born in Melbourne and lived there for probably 9 years. And then I moved to a little country town about 2.5 hours away. And then, lived there for most of my adulthood, I guess. And then I decided to, on a whim, just to move up to Queensland, which is a couple of states north from Victoria. So, yeah, I've been up here about 10, 11 years now. So, yeah, I love it up here.
All right. Sounds good. All right, Beck. So let's get into this. There's no way to say this. This sounds very intense. How did all this start for you?
In my healing or my...
Well, the healing started because of trauma, wherever you want to start.
Well, look, I always pin it back to when I finished school. I had, like a gap year where I thought I didn't want to go to school and I sort of wanted to explore other avenues like my friends were. Only thing is they had the courage and the means and the money and the skills. I didn't. I was.
So we're talking what, 20 years of age or what? 18?
I wasn't even 18. I was probably 17 and a half. I was a bit of an early finisher.
Okay.
I tried the gap year where I tried to explore life. And problem was I had no idea about life. Did not have the skills. I certainly didn't have the emotional development to even have a go at life as you try to even in your late teens. Just failed miserably. I had applied for university and I remember sitting in my room one day going, if I don't do something, I'm going to be stuck in this room for a very long time doing absolutely nothing. And I was broke. I was miserable. I would say if I was diagnosed back then, I was probably depressed. So I just, fortunately, I decided to take up a university offer and switch degrees. I was originally going to do business and I didn't really want to do that. So I decided to go into teaching instead. And that was kind of the just the momentum I needed to get up and do something, because I knew the alternative of sitting there depressed and broke was not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to at least get up. And the thing that I talk about this a lot now, school was my safety. So going to university wasn't so much about getting the degree at the time. It was 4 years. And my first thought was, that's 4 years I don't have to engage in the world. I can go and study and go to the library and stick to myself and rely on those supportive, nurturing teachers that I had throughout all my school. And it was 4 years I didn't have to think about what I was going to do with my life beyond that. So I decided to do that, and I think I did quite well at that. So, yeah, and of course, there were challenges along that way as well, because kids are still wanting to have fun at university and go to parties, and I was just trying to learn as much as I could about how you have fun. I mean, it really was a bit like that for me. How do I have fun when I had so much internally going on? And I never understood that. I never understood how kids could go out and party and drink and socialise and just seem like nothing mattered except what was happening in that moment, where I just felt like I was carrying this baggage of trauma, of emotional abandonment, of parental abandonment and neglect. And I didn't know how to separate. Well, I didn't feel like I could separate the two. I couldn't just go, oh, Beck's going to have fun tonight. I was like, no, I've got all this baggage with me.
All right, so let me interject here. So you mentioned depression and all this baggage and trauma. So was the trauma and the neglect that you speak of here, was that conscious during this time? Were you aware of this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So you're aware of what you experienced, because some people are like, no, I didn't realize what it was. So up to this point, had you sought any help at all?
Well, look, no, because at the time, the police were actually involved when I was 14, and I was sat down with my mother and questioned whether the abuse by her father and my paternal grandfather was true. And I knew it was that crossroad in my life. Was I going to say yes or no? And how was my life going to look beyond that? And so I knew I wanted the abuse to stop. So I knew that by saying yes, speaking that truth, that things were absolutely going to change. And of course they did. But I was offered foster care initially, and I was also offered counselling. And at the time, I just wanted my normal back. I wanted to keep with my friends. The few friends I had, I wanted that normality. I didn't want things to change. It was hard enough to speak out about the abuse, then be displaced somewhere I didn't know, away from my little town, away from my friends, away from other people. So I didn't think talking about it back then was going to change anything. So
at 14, you were 14 at the time. Did you want to get away from your mother?
Don't know. I don't know if I thought about it like that, because I knew that she wouldn't address it. She shut down immediately. There was absolutely no investigation from her. It was just flat out denial, and it was like it didn't happen. So that conversation didn't happen. She went into her own world of disassociation. So it was kind of easy, and I had my room as my sanctuary. I always spoke about that, especially in my book, where I just talk about my room being my sanctuary. So it didn't bother me that she was kind of there, because she was never, she didn't get angry at me. She didn't spite words at me. She just didn't say anything. So it was a pretense. It was just, we'll just pretend the elephant's there, but we just won't acknowledge it, kind of thing. Yeah.
During that time, how did you manage day to day?
I often think about that, because I know I've got 13-year-old myself, and I just think if she was in that position without a parent, I think you just learn to adapt. You're young, you've got nowhere else to go. I didn't want to take the foster option. You adapt the best you can. I didn't go to school a lot. I went to school, but then I'd wag. I found a group who didn't want to go to school either, and I thought, well, because learning's the furthest thing from your mind.
Right.
You're really just there to maybe even try and find some solace. It's just a lot of avoidance. You just go, okay, well, this is the way it's going to be. I guess my priority is that the abuse had stopped, and I'd already gone through abuse since I was 6.5 years old from both my grandfathers.
Oh my God. Yeah.
For me, that was the prize. That was absolutely the prize that, he maintained he would never come back in the house. And for that was a win for me. Like, great, I actually have a safe place to be that I don't always have to escape or avoid. So, yeah, you I don't know. It's amazing what you get through, I guess, when you're young.
So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you talked about that time in what sounded like a dorm room or whatever, trying to figure out what the hell are you going to do with your life. During those years, to what degree were you functional? How did you survive? I know you don't use that word survivor or thriver, but how did you maintain?
Well, you just have to, I don't know, because I think it's one foot in front of the other. I don't think like I said, school was such a big part of my life. It was the only place, even though I would, play truancy every now and then, it was still a place where I could still just go and I could escape home, and you could have those separate environments. And, distraction plays a huge part in it as long as you've got something else going on.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember sitting with the anxiety of knowing I had to go back home because, my grandfather would still show up and sit in the driveway every week. And, of course, my grandmother was there and she cut me out of her life. So I was completely ostracised from my family. And I guess, I don't know, I don't know how my mum perceived it. It was just, she didn't want to openly make a choice, but she did, obviously.
Right. Where's your dad in the picture?
He was long gone. My parents divorced when I was 6, and we actually moved into his father's house where the abuse started there. But he sort of wafted in and out, but there was no relationship there either. So, I don't know.
Let's talk about, how, at what point did you start to address this, or increase your awareness about it to the degree that you were like, okay, I'm going to write this book? What was going on? What was the impetus for that, genesis for that?
Oh, gosh. It's such look, I just remember falling into a pattern. And a lot of people tell me I'm very self-aware. And I don't reject it, but I go, really? I don't know. But I guess because I'd rejected counselling, in my gap year, I still didn't seek it. But what happened was 18 months into my degree, I deferred. I didn't want to do it anymore because I was waking up every morning feeling heavy and depressed, and I was crying, and I didn't know what was going on. I mean, this is back in the 90s, and we didn't talk about depression. We didn't talk about anxiety. It was just there's something going on with me, and I'd go to a lecture and I could not get through a lecture without bursting into tears, and I just didn't know what was going on. And But, I try to avoid it. I'm like, well, I've just got to get up. I've just got to keep going. And, you try and give yourself those pep talks like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I couldn't afford to drink, so I would smoke. And, I just try and get through it. And I remember moving away because my theory was if I move away, the problems will stay and I'll just be able to go and have that fantasy life. And I was looking at all these beautiful townhouses. I was 18, probably nearly 19, and looking, I'll just move into a townhouse. It's completely fantasy world. And I'll just get a job. And this was 4 hours away with a girlfriend at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was that I couldn't get a day job, but I got like a night waitressing job. And because nights were particularly hard for me, you'd finish the day and then I'd go to my room and I'd sit there and I would be really depressed again. I'd be crying. I'd be, just having all these suicide ideations of trying to escape. And I thought, well, if I'm working at night, then I'll be fine. It'll take care of that. It'll keep me distracted. And what I found was that the nights were fine because I was distracted, but during the day, I was really struggling and I just couldn't work it out. I'm like, I can't escape this. It doesn't matter what I do. And I actually had my name on a waiting list back in my hometown for counselling, specifically for sexual assault, and there was a wait list. So I walked into the local one and I just needed to be somewhere. And I remember walking in and I sat in the waiting room and the receptionist said, can I help you? And I said, no, I'm okay. I've got my name on a waiting list. I just need somewhere to be. I don't feel good right now. And she said, you need to leave because this isn't a holding fort. And I said, no, I'm really not okay right now.
Wow.
I felt quite suicidal. And she said, no, this is not a waiting spot for you. If you don't have an appointment, you need to leave. And I said, look, have you got an appointment? She said, in about 4 weeks. And I screamed. And I was not like that. I would never scream at anyone.
Sounds like a breaking point.
I said, I don't have 4 weeks. Like, I really felt like it was the end for me. And she said, I'm sorry, you have to go. And so I got in the car and I was just looking for a tree. I just thought, what tree can I just plow into?
Wow.
And I realised while I was speeding down this open road, I thought, I've been doing this for years, just trying to run away, just trying to distract myself, and nothing's working. This is not my life. I cannot have my life like I had big dreams. I had goals. I wanted to be normal. I wanted the family, the job, the kids, the husband. I wanted that. And I was not getting it the way it was going. So I ended up packing up, going back to my hometown, waiting out the 4 weeks I had left and getting counselling and just starting that process of going, I need someone to hear me because my story or my experience had been mocked and ignored and shut down by my own family, by my own mother, by my own father. I felt that was the first step. I just needed to share what had happened to me to someone that felt like they gave a damn, and that was really my starting point. And I kind of never stopped for quite a few years after that.
Jesus, Beck, intense. You talked about that, just looking for that tree. Had you, prior to that, you talked about suicidal ideation, had you actually tried to take your life prior to that?
No, I wanted to. I know it sounds, I wanted to, but there was always that, I just always felt like I wasn't giving myself a chance. And I knew that if I did that, what would my life, I just didn't think it was fair. I really wanted to because the pain was so intense and I just felt so alone in the world and I just could not see a way that I was going to get to where I wanted to be. but I just thought, if I do that, then I haven't given myself a chance. What's
Mhm.
life like if I do? If I do care about myself, if I do find people that will love and support me. And that's really, I always had this kind of inner voice going, but what about you? You know, what
Mm.
about, you know, that little girl that was never heard and supported? And I just felt I had to give her that chance. Yeah.
So you started seeing someone. At what was it like when someone did listen to you?
Well, it was strange, actually. It was I was waiting for the mocking. I was waiting and I actually devoted a whole chapter to one of my first appointments and waiting for her to go, that's enough. Come on. Is that really true? Have you twisted it a little bit? Have you misinterpreted it a little bit here?
Mhm.
Um,
And just to be
very,
clear, you went into therapy for sexual abuse. It wasn't
yeah.
like for depression or anxiety. And so the hope
Uh,
I'm guessing the therapist you saw was experienced in
yeah,
this.
they were
Okay,
sexual assault counselors, they were
sexual
called.
assault. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
but you didn't. You were like waiting for the mocking to happen.
Yeah, because I hadn't met an adult that had, aside from the police taking my statement, which is their job to, it's not their job to judge or ascertain the truth. It's just tell us what happened. Um, yeah, I just remember going, there's got to be a limit on what I can say because surely you're going to tell me that this really isn't true. And um, my grandfather, my maternal one, was a police officer, so and they don't do the wrong thing, do they? You know, and
Mm.
so, but after a while, she was everything I needed. It was just I was waiting for my fortnightly appointment to see
Oh
her because
wow,
I just felt so, I don't know, it's like that unloading and someone's there with a giant hug just to go,
that's
I'm here.
amazing.
Yeah. And because I never had that with my mother. Like
Right.
I was never embraced by my mum. I was never, my God, what happened? When did it happen? How long did it happen? There was just nothing. And so she was an incredible woman. I saw her for, probably chased her down wherever she moved. I found her and I would just
Oh
keep
my.
going.
Wow. So I mean, that sounds amazing and incredible. Were there, in addition to her, can you talk a little bit about something or things that she did that helped you in your healing process also?
I mean, it's funny when people say, we hear it a lot now, we just need to be heard. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I didn't think of it that way at the time. I needed like a mum. I needed
Mhm.
someone to love me, um, and I just didn't realize how important it was to be able to share an experience that's so deep and just strips you of your childhood, and that foundation of safety and trust in your caregiver. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how critical that is to development and a sense of just belief in yourself and just a worthiness in yourself. I had no idea. So it just became, there was one bit, and I rewrote my book probably 5 times. And I'm grateful that I did because there was one moment that I didn't realize I hadn't put in the book. And I read it, I can still read it now, and it tears me up because there was one point where she looked at me and she asked me about my mum, and I became a bit defiant, like, I don't care. I don't care what my mum thinks. I just need to talk about it and move on. I had this kind of pragmatic approach. I'm just going to get through it and dump it and move on with my life, thinking it was done. And I remember she said, because it was around, the fact that my mum had never given me any support. And she looked at me and she said, but what if she had? What if she had, Beck? And I could not look at her. And I felt that she pinpointed the core of my pain, that the one thing I needed, the one very thing that a little girl needed was her mum to pick her up and say, I'm here and I will never let anyone hurt you again. And it crushed me. And I just went, wow, I didn't realize how, because when you talked before about how did I get through it, I had to, there's a part of you that has to pretend you don't care. Oh, I don't care. I don't care that mum doesn't need me. And I guess I'd paraded around like that for a while. I don't care. Does it matter that my mum doesn't believe me? Does it matter that she...
Because if you didn't say that and looked at the truth, it would crush anybody.
Yeah. And I think she just kind of, she always sort of came in gentle. Mm-hmm. And she just tested the waters. Can Beck handle this today?
Sure.
And if she can't, and I'm going to watch all the cues and I'll pull back. And she was so good like that.
Wow.
And in complete opposition, I remember earlier on, I was so desperate for to see someone. I rang the psych line at 2 a.m, which was quite regular for me. And I remember meeting up with this psychiatrist, and he had the complete opposite approach. He was right in there. He's like, what are you afraid of? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to deal with? And I just couldn't handle it. I'm like, I don't know, what are you talking about? And I ended up running out and never saw him again. But this lady, she nurtured it, and she just gently went in and gently came out. And I saw her.
Do you call her by her name in the book?
I do. Her name is Sue.
She sounds amazing.
I did. I actually got in contact, believe it or not. So I'm, in my mid-40s now, and I got in contact with her as I was writing the book, funnily enough. I must have a way of tracking her down. And I asked her for her permission. I said, do you mind if I use your name? Yeah, and she's been amazing. I sent her a copy and everything, and yeah, it's so lovely because she's a part of my upbringing. That's the way I see it. She's that crucial model that I needed, and yeah, it was amazing.
The book is called Chasing Normal. It's a memoir. Why did you write the book?
Well, I always thought I would. I had this sort of idea in my head that one day I'm going to write a story about my life. And funnily enough, I've still got the typewriter version when I started writing when I was 19, and I hadn't even done any work yet. And I look at it now and I go, gosh, you don't even know the mountain you had ahead of you. And then I pursued it when I was 40. I wrote it because it's such a common story. I know that my story is not in isolation, unfortunately. Abuse is so common. And because I talk about the subsequent mental illness that I developed in response to all of this, and it's quite severe, I wanted people to see that we can overcome these things. So it's a lot of work, and you've really got to do a lot of internal stuff. You've got to be willing to look at the pain and sit with it. But I wanted my normality, and I deserved that much. I deserved a chance at that. And I wanted to bring a relatively common story to people to say, look, I'm pretty raw and honest in my book. I share all the warts. Because I'm not ashamed of, what do we expect when you go through sexual abuse as a child? What do we really expect our lives to turn out like? And I wanted to share that. Well, this is what happens. This is what happens when, you're abused, you're not supported by your family, like your mum that you rely on. This is what happens, and this is what I had to do to overcome it. But there was nothing magical. I didn't need a lot of money. I didn't have the best support. You know what I mean? I didn't pay for a lot of treatment. there were just ways that I looked at my life and went, I cannot have this chronic anxiety anymore. I've got 3 kids now, and so I just wanted to show people that it's possible, because we don't deserve to be robbed of that.
No.
It's the saddest thing, that something that was put on us, and some people live with this for the rest of their lives, and they don't deserve that, and I just wanted to say, hey, I've been through it too, and we can do this. We can overcome it. Yeah.
So as we kind of wind down here, there are a lot of therapists and coaches, people in the mental health field who are listening to this podcast. What would you say to them in terms of, well, wherever you want to start? I mean, in terms of maybe understanding, with the understanding that everyone's different, right? Every case is different. But what would you say to them in terms of ways to engage someone, ways not to engage someone? What worked for you in that context?
Well, like you said, everyone's experience, even though it's such a common story, the way that we internalize it is so different. And I know I've internalized it in a different way than someone else. And for me, I just went inward. And so for a therapist to come in and be able to sit in that space and know that 3 words might be said, because for someone like me, it was just being there and having that actual safe space. That term gets thrown around now. It's great. But to someone who is shut down and completely inside themselves because it is not safe out there. And the thing with therapists is, I mean, they're so good. I'm so fortunate we have access. Not as much as we need, I guess, sometimes. But the thing is that just having that safe place for a person who's still a child, really, and that's where I was. I was still a very underdeveloped child turning up as a 19-year-old. And it's just that patience to go, hey, this little girl has locked herself away for a very long time. And we can't just come in and go, come on, spill the beans. I'm safe. I'm a therapist. Look at my things on the wall.
Right.
We can't do that. It's just got to be so gentle. And, it's just, I used to say it's like it's an ice pick. It's an ice pick at a mountain, It's just little bit by little bit. And it's exhausting for us, like even if you say 5 words and you walk out and just go, why do I feel so exhausted? It's just that. Yeah. So It's just patience, I think, and just, I guess, being able to read the room and just go, this person's just been suppressed for so long, and it's going to be a bit of a long road. And it really was, just having a little patience.
Beck, man, I mean, come on. And what do you say about it? It's just intense, for lack of a better word. I mean, this is, it's so, you said, yeah, it's common. Yes, it is, unfortunately. But, we're here and we're talking about you and your life. And before you go here, I just want to address something. So in the bio, you said you never, you don't want to use the word survivor or thriver. Say more about that.
The image I have every time I hear survivor is treading water. I'm still surviving. And I specifically, in my head, I wanted to have a life where I'm not just surviving something. Like, I don't know, for me it still feels like I'm carrying the weight and I'm just surviving it. And thriving, it's just, I don't know, I'm a bit opposed to these words. I don't know. It's nothing personal to anyone that wants to use it. It's just, for me, I just kind of wanted to go, all right, I've processed that. I'm just someone, I say lived experience. I say I've lived through something, but I'm no longer I'm not surviving. I don't know. I always feel like I'm not there yet. I'm just
doesn't fit for you.
Doesn't fit for me. I went through something, but I think we just have the amazing capacity to overcome things when we understand how our body holds on to that memory, how it stores and how it affects our mental functions. I think once we understand that, people have survived much worse.
Well, it's all relative, right?
Yeah,
I
yes,
mean,
yeah, it is.
so currently you're what? You're a teacher, you're obviously a mother. Are
Yes,
you like a full-time teacher?
no, gosh,
Okay.
only to my children.
Okay.
No, I'm a relief teacher, so a supply, as you probably call it, and I work mainly with special needs students these days, trauma, ADHD, autistic, those sorts of things, which I love. Yeah, and I'm a mum, but yeah, I still do, a few speaking engagements and things like this. So, which is what I'm really passionate about, to be honest. It's that's where I always wanted to go. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hmm.
All right. So how do people contact you? Again, the book's called Chasing Normal. We'll have this linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. How can people reach out to you, learn more about you, and et cetera?
Well, look, there is my website at beckthompson.com.au. But I'm on most social. I'm a bit old, but I'm on, Facebook and Instagram are my main ones that I share little tidbits of my own recovery and my logic on things. And I am, currently working on a second book. So yeah, they're my main ones, that people can reach out. And I don't generally hold back. I'm pretty honest about my recovery and what I went through. So
Awesome. Well,
reach
it
out.
was a pleasure meeting you and
Yeah,
really inspiring talking to you. I'd love to have you back at a later date and
yeah,
keep up
thank
to date
you.
with what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate your time, Guy.
Okay, appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Take care.
Yeah, no worries. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.